Hello and welcome back to Analysis Review. Even the proverbial Martian knows by now that Europe's economy is in trouble. The crisis in the Eurozone grinds on, threatening to hit the global economy. Yet in the midst of all this gloom, there is, it seems, one beacon: Germany. Is Europe's biggest economy a model for others to follow? With me to discuss this are from Frankfurt, Ralph Atkins, our bureau chief there, and with me in London, Michael Steen, our recently appointed European economics correspondent. Welcome. Ralph, I'd like to start with you. You recently wrote a big analysis of the German economy, but just tell us quickly. 10 years ago, they were being seen as a bit of a basket case. Now they're a success story. What's happened?
Absolutely. I think what's happened, what was important were the reforms that were made in Germany almost a decade ago under Gerhard Schröder, the previous chancellor, which led to greater labour market flexibility. And at the same time, we had a big push by the big German corporations and smaller companies across the industrial sector to increase their competitiveness, which they managed to do quite dramatically. And that's now really paying off as we come out of at least the very worst of the financial crisis of the last few years.
But isn't it a bit the same old German story of an export-driven boom? And this particular one, a lot of the exports are going to China, and there's talk maybe they're too dependent on China.
Well, certainly the dynamism of Chinese growth is a large part of the story, and they're obviously profiting from that. But they're profiting from exports to other countries as well. And for instance, exports to Russia grew faster last year. So they are pretty diversified, but what they do require is global growth, of course. But then the Germans would also say that they are rebalancing, because what, of course, is happening is that the impact of all that business they're doing in the rest of the world is feeding through into jobs and therefore supporting the domestic economy. Don't forget, unemployment in Germany has fallen to the lowest since the country was reunified in 1990, and in the middle of an economic crisis across the world. That's pretty remarkable.
Right. Now, Michael, bring you in. Look, talk of labour market reform, competitiveness, healthy exports. That sort of quick sketch of the new German model, or the old German model, if you like. Is that really one that others are going to follow? There's lots of talk, but is there any evidence that others are trying to copy this?
Exactly. What's not to like? They're in a very good place right now, and it does indeed, cause politicians in the UK, for example, to start talking about, maybe we can emulate their vocational training and so on. That, however, has always been a debate. Nothing really ever seems to change much outside of Germany. And I think one of the things about the German model is it is fairly specific to Germany. Not least, you've got the whole the Mittelstand, the small manufacturing companies in particular, and also the way the economy is built up. It's about 20% of German GDP is manufacturing, compared to about 12 in the UK. So you certainly can just transplant the model.
Ralph, what do you? How does it look from where you're sitting?
I was going to say there is a cultural dimension to it, of course, because the reaction of German companies during the crisis, the serious recession of 2009, the global slowdown, was not like the UK and the US companies to slash their workforces. What the German companies did was they held on to their labour and they used these government-supported short-time working schemes to keep their workforce. So when the rebound came and global growth returned, they were ready and they were able to take advantage of that in a big way. And I'm not sure if the US, UK political systems would ever think that way.
Also, we shouldn't forget here that in Germany, you talk of particular cultural dimensions. Well, one of them is that they themselves don't feel that everything is always that rosy. They say they've got problems, aging population, structural reforms that still need to take place. Is that not the sort of darker side?
The shorter term, I think that the Germans now think that they can handle crisis. They've learned from the experience of the last few years, and they think that if there is for instance, a sharp slowdown in China, they're ready. They can survive. They survived 2009. They can survive anything. But you're right. The longer term, there are serious issues that the German population, the German economy faces, one of which, of course, is maybe the major one, is the aging population, which is really restricting the pace at which the German economy can grow.
Just picking up on that, I think that's another point worth making, is that they're benefiting now from work that was done in the early noughties, during all these reforms when they had more or less flat growth. And if you were to chart GDP growth since the euro was introduced, actually Germany underperforms pretty much everyone. It underperforms the Eurozone as a whole, massively underperforms the UK and the US.
Right. Yeah. I think you have to look at the GDP figures in relation to the aging of the population, though. And for an aging population, the German economy has done pretty well.
Ralph, just quickly, I mean, a lot of people from the outside say that Germany actually needs to rebalance its economy, sort of import a bit more, spend more. You would argue, I think, that that's happening.
The Germans would certainly say that is happening. As I said earlier, the impact of all that world trade and so on is leading to a very sharp falls in unemployment. And what we're also seeing is the pickup in wages. Trade unions are getting more confident and demanding wage increases, 3, 4, even 6%. And they are getting better deals. We're having more warning strike action, which would obviously mean higher incomes, more spending in the domestic economy. And if you look at some things like, for instance, wine imports into Germany, 20% increase in Spanish wine imports last year, because a lot of Spanish wine producers having to get rid of stock they can't sell at home, selling it cheaply in Germany. So you are getting a sort of rebalancing there. And also, of course, supply companies in other European countries supply to the German industrial sector, which then exports them. So there are connections, and the surplus of Germany's surplus over other Eurozone countries has fallen. Of course, it's not nearly as much as a lot of people outside Germany would like.
Just a quick last word from Michael, because the time is pressing on. I mean, the German economic view, if we want to call it that, has sort of been predominant for the recent months, years, if you like, particularly within the debate of the Eurozone. But do you sense that there may now be some change in the air? We're in the middle of a French presidential election campaign. There are elections elsewhere. We've had a fall of a government, of a Dutch government, all of which points to perhaps a sort of shift or in direction of economic outlook and policy. Do you see that happening, which may even have...
Well, obviously, if Francois Hollande becomes the next president of France, we're due for at least a change in the tone of the debate, and quite possibly also some substance to it as well. The rest of Europe is already reacting to that. We have Mario Draghi yesterday talking about the need for a growth compact. To some extent, Angela Merkel, if that is framed correctly, is okay with that. But I think this week there's been this interesting sort of beginnings of almost a popular backlash against austerity, and so this whole growth versus austerity debate has clearly got some way to go. And to make it hopefully not too simple, but the German view of you need to focus on austerity is certainly under some challenge at the moment.
Quick last one to you, Ralph. I mean, could we even see a change of outlook in Germany?
I don't think the view's been changed in Germany at the moment. Everything's going very well as far as they're concerned at the moment.
Right. Ralph Atkins, thank you from Frankfurt, and thank you, Michael Steen, here in London. And thank you for watching. To catch up on this and other stories covered in the analysis pages of the FT, please go to ft.com/analysis. Until the next time, goodbye.